The thunder of hooves echoed across the dusty plains as Daisy Dawson raced her prized Palomino mare across the Montana Territory, her golden hair whipping wildly behind her like a flag of defiance against the approaching storm. It was 1875, and the West was still wild, but not nearly as wild as the determination in Daisy's heart as she pushed her beloved horse Marigold harder, desperate to reach her family's ranch before nightfall. The summer of 1875 had been unusually harsh on the Dawson family ranch. Drought had withered their crops, and cattle rustlers had thinned their herds. At 22, Daisy had taken on responsibilities far beyond her years after her father's passing the previous winter. Her mother and younger siblings depended on her strength now, and she wouldn't let them down, not today, not ever. Daisy had ridden into Silverwood Creek, the nearest town, to negotiate with the bank for more time on their loan. The meeting hadn't gone well. Mr. Hobbs, the pinch-faced banker, had given her just 2 more weeks before foreclosure. With the money from selling her mother's silver to the general store tucked safely in her saddlebag, she had at least bought them some time. The sky darkened ominously as she crested a hill overlooking the valley. Marigold snorted nervously beneath her, sensing the change in weather. "Just a little further, girl," Daisy soothed, patting the horse's neck. The Palomino was more than just livestock, she was family, raised from a foal by Daisy's own hand after the mother died during birth. The bond between them was unbreakable. That's when she noticed the dust cloud approaching from the east riders, moving fast and heading straight toward her. Instinctively, Daisy veered Marigold toward a copse of cottonwood trees, hoping to avoid whoever was coming. In these parts, strangers often meant trouble. From her position among the trees, Daisy watched as 3 rough-looking men slowed their mounts, scanning the horizon. Their faces were partially obscured by bandanas, and their clothes were travel-worn and dusty. One man, tall and lean with a vicious scar running down his cheek, pointed in her direction. "There! Among the trees," he shouted. Daisy's heart hammered in her chest. These men were clearly outlaws, possibly the same gang that had been terrorizing ranches throughout the territory. She turned Marigold and urged her into a gallop, breaking from the cover of the trees and racing across the open plain toward home. The thundering of hooves behind her confirmed her fears they were in pursuit. Marigold was fast, but Daisy knew she couldn't outrun 3 fresh horses, not with Marigold already tired from the journey to town. Still, she had to try. "Come on, girl," she urged, leaning low over Marigold's neck as they flew across the grassland. The men were gaining. Daisy could hear their whoops and hollers, like wolves on the hunt. A shot rang out, whistling past her ear. They weren't trying to kill her, not yet, just scare her into stopping. "Pull up that horse, lady," one of them shouted. "We just want to talk." Daisy knew better than to trust the word of men who chased women with guns drawn. She pushed Marigold harder, but the mare was tiring fast. Ahead, she spotted a narrow ravine. Perhaps she could lose them there. Guiding Marigold toward the ravine, Daisy risked a glance back. The outlaws were close now, the leader grinning maliciously beneath his bandana. As she turned back, her blood ran cold. 2 more riders had appeared ahead, cutting off her path to the ravine. Trapped, Daisy pulled Marigold to a halt, the mare's sides heaving with exertion. The 5 outlaws circled her slowly, like vultures around a dying animal. Well, said the scarred man, clearly the leader. "Ain't you a pretty little thing? And that's a mighty fine horse you got there." Daisy sat tall in her saddle, refusing to show fear despite her racing heart. "What do you want?" "That depends," the leader said, pulling down his bandana to reveal a cruel smile. "Name's Vince Blackwell, and these are my men. We're in need of fresh horses and whatever valuables you might be carrying." "You can't have my horse," Daisy said firmly, her hand instinctively moving to her saddlebag where the money was hidden. Blackwell's eyes narrowed. "I don't think you understand, miss. I ain't asking." He dismounted and approached Marigold, reaching for her bridle. Daisy kicked out, catching him square in the chest. Blackwell stumbled back, surprise turning quickly to rage. "You'll regret that," he growled, drawing his pistol. "The lady said no," came a deep voice from behind them. All heads turned to see a lone rider approaching, his dark silhouette backlit by the setting sun. He rode a powerful black stallion, his posture relaxed yet somehow radiating danger. As he drew closer, Daisy could see he was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair and a stubbled jaw. His clothes were those of a working cowboy, worn denim, leather chaps, and a dust-covered hat pulled low over his eyes. "This ain't your business, stranger," Blackwell called out, keeping his gun trained on Daisy. The newcomer reined his horse to a stop about 20 yards away. "I'm making it my business." His voice was calm, but carried an unmistakable edge of steel. "The lady and her horse are free to go." One of Blackwell's men laughed. "There's 5 of us and 1 of you, mister. Those ain't good odds." The stranger's mouth quirked into a half-smile. "I've faced worse." Blackwell stepped forward. "Last chance to ride away with your life, cowboy." The stranger dismounted smoothly, his movements unhurried. "The outlaw tried to take her horse," he said, his eyes locked on Blackwell. "And this cowboy says over my dead body." For a moment, no one moved. Then Blackwell raised his gun and fired. The stranger dropped and rolled with astonishing speed, drawing his own pistol in one fluid motion. His first shot caught Blackwell's right-hand man in the shoulder, sending him tumbling from his horse. The second struck another outlaw's gun, knocking it from his hand. Chaos erupted. Daisy seized the opportunity and kicked Marigold into motion, breaking through the circle of outlaws. A bullet whizzed past her ear as she rode, but she kept going, heading for a rocky outcropping that would provide cover. Behind her, gunfire continued to echo across the plain. She reined Marigold in behind the rocks, her heart pounding. She couldn't just leave her rescuer to face 5 outlaws alone. Reaching into her saddlebag, she pulled out her father's old revolver. She'd never shot a man before, but she knew how to use the weapon. Peering around the rocks, she saw the stranger taking cover behind his fallen horse, exchanging fire with the outlaws. 2 of Blackwell's men were already down, but the stranger appeared to be wounded, blood darkening the sleeve of his shirt. Daisy took aim and fired. Her shot went wide, but it distracted one of the outlaws long enough for the stranger to take him down with a well-placed bullet to the leg. Now only Blackwell and 1 other remained upright. "You're going to die today, cowboy," Blackwell shouted, advancing on the stranger's position. Daisy fired again, her bullet striking Blackwell's remaining companion in the thigh. He fell with a cry of pain. Blackwell whirled, spotting her position. With a snarl of rage, he turned his gun toward her. The stranger emerged from behind his horse, bleeding but determined. "It's over, Blackwell," he called. Blackwell hesitated, caught between 2 opponents. In that moment of indecision, the stranger's bullet found its mark. Blackwell staggered, clutching his chest, then collapsed to his knees before falling face first into the dust. Silence descended on the plain, broken only by the moans of the wounded outlaws and the distant rumble of thunder. Daisy emerged from her hiding place, keeping her gun trained on the fallen men as she approached the stranger. He was leaning heavily against his horse, which had been playing dead rather than actually wounded, a trick Daisy had never seen before. Blood seeped through the fingers he pressed against his upper arm. "You're hurt," she said, holstering her father's revolver. The stranger looked up, and for the first time, Daisy saw his face clearly. He was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps in his late 20s, with intense blue eyes and a strong, square jaw. Despite his pain, he managed a smile that transformed his entire countenance. "It's just a graze," he said, though his pallor suggested otherwise. "Are you all right, miss?" "Thanks to you," Daisy replied. "I'm Daisy Dawson. My family's ranch is about 5 miles south of here. Kyle Warren." He introduced himself with a slight nod. "Pleased to make your acquaintance, Miss Dawson, though I wish it had been under better circumstances." A fat raindrop splashed against Daisy's cheek, followed quickly by another. The storm was upon them. "We need to get you to shelter, Mr. Warren. That wound needs tending, and these men won't stay down forever." Kyle glanced at the groaning outlaws. "We should tie them up first. There's rope in my saddlebag." Working together in the increasingly heavy rain, they bound the wounded outlaws. None had been killed, though Blackwell's wound was serious. Daisy couldn't find it in her heart to feel sorry for them, considering what they had intended. "We'll send the sheriff out from Silverwood Creek once we reach my ranch," Daisy said as they finished. "He can bring a wagon for this lot." Kyle nodded, swaying slightly on his feet. The blood loss and exertion were taking their toll. Daisy moved quickly to his side, supporting him with her shoulder. "You need a doctor," she said firmly. Your ranch is closer than town, Kyle replied, his voice strained. If you don't mind the company. After what you did, Mr. Warren, you're welcome at Dawson Ranch for as long as you need. Together they mounted their horses, Kyle requiring Daisy's assistance to climb into his saddle. As they rode south through the rain, Daisy kept a worried eye on her rescuer. He sat tall despite his injury, occasionally swaying but never complaining. Why did you help me? She asked after they had ridden in silence for a while. You could have been killed. Kyle was quiet for so long that Daisy thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft but clear over the patter of rain. My father taught me that a man who doesn't stand up for others isn't much of a man at all. I couldn't ride past and leave you to those vultures. Something in his tone suggested there was more to the story, but Daisy didn't press. They had miles to go, and Kyle needed to conserve his strength. The rain had soaked them both by the time the lights of Dawson Ranch appeared through the downpour. Daisy felt a surge of relief at the sight of home, a modest but well-built ranch house with a barn and several outbuildings nearby. Lamplight glowed in the windows, a beacon in the stormy night. As they approached, the front door flew open, and a woman rushed out onto the porch, a shawl pulled over her head against the rain. Daisy, her mother called, worry clear in her voice. We were so worried when the storm hit, and you weren't home yet. I'm fine, Mama, Daisy called back, guiding Marigold to the hitching post. But I've brought someone who needs help. Martha Dawson, a woman in her 40s whose face still held traces of the beauty she had been in her youth, hurried down the steps. Her expression changed from relief to concern as she took in Kyle's bloodied appearance. Good heavens! What happened? Outlaws, Daisy explained as she helped Kyle dismount. They tried to steal Marigold and the money. Mr. Warren saved us both. Martha didn't hesitate. Bring him inside, quickly. Thomas, she called over her shoulder. Come help your sister. A gangly youth of 16 appeared in the doorway, his eyes widening at the sight of the wounded stranger. He rushed to take Kyle's other side, and together they helped him into the house. The Dawson home was modest but comfortable, with handmade furniture and colorful quilts that brightened the simple rooms. They settled Kyle in the chair closest to the fire, where Martha immediately began cutting away his bloodied sleeve. Thomas, fetch my medicine box, she instructed her son. Daisy, get some clean water and bandages. Lucy, put the kettle on. A girl of about 14, who had been watching wide-eyed from the kitchen doorway, nodded and disappeared to do as she was told. Kyle endured Martha's ministrations stoically, wincing only slightly as she cleaned and examined his wound. You're lucky, Mr. Warren, Martha pronounced after a thorough inspection. The bullet grazed you but didn't hit anything vital. You'll need stitches, though. Mrs. Dawson was a nurse during the war. Daisy explained as she returned with bandages. If anyone can patch you up, it's Mama. Kyle managed to smile. I'm in your debt, madam. Nonsense, Martha replied, threading a needle. You saved my daughter and her horse. This is the least we can do. She paused, needle poised. This will hurt, I'm afraid. Kyle nodded. I understand. As Martha set to work stitching the wound, Thomas cleared his throat. Daisy, what about those outlaws you mentioned? Should we send for the sheriff? Daisy had almost forgotten. Yes, immediately. They're tied up about 5 miles north, near Cottonwood Creek. Tell Sheriff Brooks it's Vince Blackwell's gang. Thomas's eyes widened. Blackwell? The one who's been raiding ranches across the territory. Kyle nodded grimly. The same. One of them is badly wounded, Blackwell himself, but they're all alive. Martha tied off the last stitch and began wrapping Kyle's arm with clean bandages. Thomas, saddle up and ride to town. Take the lantern. Be careful, the storm's still raging. Yes, Mama, Thomas replied, already pulling on his coat. After her son departed, Martha turned her attention back to Kyle. You look exhausted, Mr. Warren. When did you last eat? Yesterday, madam, Kyle admitted. I've been tracking Blackwell's gang for days. Daisy exchanged a surprised look with her mother. Tracking them? Are you a lawman, Mr. Warren? Kyle shook his head. No, miss. Just a cowboy with a score to settle. The cryptic answer hung in the air as Lucy brought in a tray with coffee and bowls of steaming stew. Kyle accepted the food gratefully, and for a few moments, the only sounds were those of eating and the storm raging outside. When he had finished, Kyle set down his empty bowl with a sigh of appreciation. That was the best meal I've had in months, Mrs. Dawson. Thank you. Martha smiled, pleased. You're welcome to stay the night, Mr. Warren. In fact, I insist. That wound needs rest, and the storm won't let up until morning. I don't want to impose. You saved my daughter, Martha said firmly. You're no imposition. Kyle's eyes met Daisy's across the room, and something unspoken passed between them. Then I accept your kind offer, Mrs. Dawson. Later, after Lucy had gone to bed and Martha had retired for the night, Daisy sat with Kyle by the fire. The storm continued outside, rain lashing against the windows and thunder rumbling in the distance. You said you were tracking Blackwell, Daisy said softly. Why? Kyle stared into the flames, his profile strong in the firelight. For a long moment, he didn't speak. When he finally did, his voice was low and rough with emotion. 6 months ago, Blackwell and his gang raided my family's ranch in Colorado. They took everything of value, including our horses. My father tried to stop them. He paused, swallowing hard. They shot him down in cold blood, right in front of my mother and sisters. He died in my arms. Daisy reached out impulsively, placing her hand on his. I'm so sorry, Kyle. He turned his hand to clasp hers, his grip warm and strong despite his injury. I've been tracking them ever since. Not for revenge, though that's what I told myself at first. I just couldn't bear the thought of them doing to another family what they did to mine. And now you've stopped them, Daisy said. Your father would be proud. Kyle's eyes, when they met hers, held a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. Thank you for saying that. They sat in companionable silence for a while, hands still joined, listening to the storm. Daisy found herself studying Kyle's face, the strong lines of his jaw, the tiny scar near his right eyebrow, the way his dark lashes framed those expressive blue eyes. Something stirred within her, a feeling both unfamiliar and somehow right. What will you do now? She asked eventually. Kyle sighed. I've been so focused on finding Blackwell, I haven't thought much beyond that. I suppose I'll head back to Colorado, help my mother and sisters rebuild. That's a long journey. Yes, he agreed, his thumb unconsciously tracing circles on the back of her hand. Though I find myself reluctant to leave just yet. Daisy felt her cheeks warm under his gaze. The mountains will still be there in a few days. You should rest until your arm heals. A smile touched his lips. Are you inviting me to stay, Miss Dawson? Perhaps I am, Mr. Warren, she replied, matching his smile with one of her own. The storm eventually passed, but Kyle Warren remained at Dawson Ranch. What was meant to be a few days of recovery stretched into a week, then 2. His wound healed quickly under Martha's care, but he found reasons to stay, first helping Thomas repair the barn roof damaged in the storm, then assisting with the difficult task of breaking a new stallion that had been giving the Dawsons trouble for months. Daisy found herself looking forward to each morning, knowing Kyle would be there with his ready smile and willing hands. He worked tirelessly alongside them, never complaining, treating her mother with respect and her siblings with kindness. In the evenings, he would often sit on the porch with Daisy, talking as the sun set over the Montana plains. She learned that he had grown up on a cattle ranch in Colorado, the oldest of 4 children. His father had been a respected rancher, his mother a schoolteacher from Boston who had come west seeking adventure and found love instead. Kyle had a way with horses that bordered on magical. Even the most stubborn animals seemed to respond to his calm, patient approach. In turn, she told him about her own life, the struggles since her father's death, her dreams of expanding the ranch someday, her love for the land that had been in the Dawson family for 2 generations. Kyle listened attentively, offering advice when asked but never presuming to know better, a quality Daisy appreciated more than she could express. Sheriff Brooks had come the morning after the confrontation, confirming that Blackwell and his men were safely behind bars. The reward for their capture, which Kyle insisted on sharing with Daisy, was enough to pay off the bank loan that had been hanging over the Dawson family's head. It's as much yours as mine, Kyle had said when she protested. We caught them together. As the days passed, something deeper than friendship blossomed between them. Daisy found herself watching for Kyle's return whenever he rode out to check the property's boundaries. He, in turn, seemed to find excuses to be near her, whether helping her groom Marigold or assisting with her daily chores. 3 weeks after Kyle's arrival, Thomas found them sitting together on the porch swing, talking quietly in the dusk. Daisy, he said, excitement clear in his voice. There's a dance in town Saturday night. Lucy and I were hoping to go. Do you think Mama would let us if you came along as chaperone? Daisy hesitated. She hadn't been to a social event since before her father died. There simply hadn't been time for such frivolities with the ranch's future in jeopardy. I don't know, Thomas, she began. We should all go. Kyle interrupted, surprising her. If Mrs. Dawson agrees, of course. Thomas grinned. That's a great idea. I'll go ask her right now. He bounded back into the house, leaving Daisy and Kyle alone again. A dance? Daisy asked, raising an eyebrow. I wouldn't have pegged you for a dancing man, Mr. Warren. Kyle chuckled, the sound warm in the evening air. There's a lot you don't know about me yet, Miss Dawson. I happen to be quite accomplished at the waltz, thanks to my mother's insistence on proper education. Is that so? Daisy couldn't help smiling at the image of young Kyle being taught to dance by his Boston-bred mother. Well, I suppose I'll have to see this marvel for myself. It would be my honor, he replied, his eyes holding hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Saturday arrived clear and warm. The entire Dawson family, along with Kyle, piled into their wagon for the trip to Silverwood Creek. Daisy wore her best dress, a blue calico that brought out the color of her eyes, and had spent an uncharacteristically long time arranging her golden hair. The town hall had been transformed for the occasion, with lanterns strung from the rafters and benches pushed back against the walls to create a dance floor. A small band played in the corner, and tables laden with food and drink lined one side of the room. As they entered, Daisy felt a momentary flash of self-consciousness. It had been so long since she'd participated in town social life. But then Kyle offered his arm, his smile reassuring, and her nervousness melted away. The evening proved magical. True to his word, Kyle was an excellent dancer, guiding Daisy around the floor with confidence and grace. They waltzed and two-stepped, laughing when they occasionally stumbled on the crowded dance floor. During a break in the music, they stepped outside for some air. The night was clear, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds on velvet. I haven't enjoyed myself this much in years, Daisy admitted, leaning against the railing of the town hall's small porch. Kyle stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. Nor have I, he said softly. They were silent for a moment, listening to the music drifting from inside and the distant call of a night bird. Daisy, Kyle began, turning to face her. I've been thinking a lot about my future lately. Her heart quickened its pace. Have you? He nodded, his expression serious. I need to return to Colorado eventually. My mother and sisters are waiting, and there's much work to be done on our ranch. Daisy felt a pang of disappointment, though she had always known this day would come. Of course, family should come first. Yes, Kyle agreed, but I've realized something important during my time here. He took her hands in his touch gentle but sure. I don't want to leave you behind. Daisy's breath caught in her throat. What are you saying, Kyle? In the silver moonlight, his eyes were intensely blue. I'm saying that in just a few short weeks, you've become essential to me, Daisy Dawson. I know it's sudden, and perhaps I'm being presumptuous, but I can't imagine my life without you in it now. Tears pricked at Daisy's eyes as joy surged through her. It's not presumptuous at all, she whispered. I feel the same way. Kyle's face lit up with hope. You do? Instead of answering with words, Daisy rose on tiptoe and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, then deepened as Kyle's arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer. When they finally parted, both were breathless. I love you, Daisy, Kyle said simply, his forehead resting against hers. I know we haven't known each other long, but some things you just know in your heart. I love you too, she replied, the words feeling right and true. But what about our ranches? They're hundreds of miles apart. Kyle smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I've been giving that some thought. What if we combined our operations? My ranch in Colorado has more cattle but needs experienced hands. Your land here has better water access. Together, we could build something truly special. The proposition was bold, but Daisy could see the possibilities immediately. A partnership, she mused. It could work, but I can't leave my family. I would never ask you to, Kyle assured her. Your mother and siblings would be welcome. We have plenty of room. But if they prefer to stay here, we could split our time between both properties, expanding both. It was a practical solution, spoken in the language Daisy understood best, the business of ranching. Yet beneath the practicality lay something far more profound, a shared vision, a shared future, a shared life. Before she could respond, the door to the town hall opened, and Thomas poked his head out. "There you are. They're playing the Virginia reel, and Lucy's looking for you both." Kyle smiled at the interruption. "We'll be right there, Thomas." As the boy disappeared back inside, Kyle turned to Daisy. "We don't need to decide everything tonight. We have time." Daisy nodded, her heart full. "Yes, we do." They returned to the dance, but everything felt different now, charged with possibility and promise. As they moved through the steps of the Virginia reel, Daisy caught her mother watching them, a knowing smile on her face. Later that night, with Martha and the children already asleep in the wagon, Kyle asked permission to call on Daisy formally. Martha's eyes had twinkled as she gave her blessing, clearly having anticipated this development. The following weeks passed in a blur of happiness. Kyle proved himself to be everything Daisy could have hoped for in a suitor: respectful, attentive, and genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions. Together, they began making plans for their future, discussing how best to merge their lives and their ranches. Martha supported the match wholeheartedly, having grown fond of Kyle during his stay. Thomas and Lucy adored him, especially after he taught them both to ride better than they ever had before. 1 month to the day after their first meeting, Kyle proposed properly, on one knee in the spot where they had first encountered each other. He'd even arranged for Marigold to be part of the occasion, presenting the ring, his mother's, sent from Colorado, tied to a ribbon around the horse's neck. "It seems fitting," he explained as Daisy wiped happy tears from her eyes. "If Blackwell hadn't tried to steal your horse, and if this cowboy hadn't said, 'Over my dead body,' we might never have found each other." The wedding took place that autumn, a joyous affair that brought together not only the Dawson family, but also Kyle's mother and sisters, who traveled from Colorado for the occasion. The ceremony was held on Dawson Ranch, beneath a canopy of golden leaves from the cottonwood trees. As Daisy and Kyle exchanged vows, Marigold and Kyle's black stallion stood nearby, adorned with flowers, a reminder of the unusual circumstances that had brought them together. Their partnership proved as successful in business as it was in love. Over the years, the combined Warren-Dawson ranching operation became one of the most prosperous in both Montana and Colorado territories. They divided their time between both properties, eventually building a new, larger home on the Montana ranch where they raised their own children, 3 sons and a daughter, who grew up with their mother's determination and their father's sense of justice. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Kyle presented Daisy with a special gift, a painting he had commissioned of Marigold, the faithful Palomino who had lived to a remarkable age and was now enjoying a well-deserved retirement in the lush pastures of the ranch. "To the horse that brought us together," Kyle said as they stood arm in arm, admiring the portrait. Daisy leaned her head against his shoulder, content beyond measure. "And to the outlaw who tried to take her," she added with a smile. Kyle laughed, pulling his wife closer. "And to the cowboy who said, 'Over my dead body,' the best decision I ever made." "I think everything worked out exactly as it was meant to," Daisy murmured, turning in his arms to kiss him. As the sun set over the Montana plains, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, the couple stood together, surrounded by the life they had built, a life born from danger and courage, nurtured by love and respect, and rich with the promise of many more years together. The outlaw had tried to take her horse, but instead, he had inadvertently given Daisy and Kyle the greatest gift of all, each other.